Wednesday, June 5. This is the news on PBCJ. I am Simone Absalom. Minister of Transport and Mining, Robert Montague, has informed that there is no mining within the boundaries of the proposed COCKPIT country protected area. He was making his contribution to the 2019-2020 sectoral debate in the House of Representatives on Tuesday.
Recently, there has been allegations about mining in the COCKPIT country. I want to be very clear. There is no mining within the boundaries of the proposed COCKPIT country protection area. There is no mining and there is no plans for that. I will be the first to admit that since the Prime Minister clearly told this House about those proposed boundaries, enough communications in a simple and clear manner has not occurred. The Forestry Department is currently physically marking the boundaries on the ground. They have so far hosted 4 community meetings, but more is needed and more will be held.
The minister also responded to recent comments in the media that suggested mining is taking place closer and closer to the boundary of the protected area. Mr. Montague said he will continue to facilitate dialogue and has instructed that a strong program of community engagement be started immediately. $100 million. That's the price tag for this year's drain cleaning across the island under the government's pre-hurricane mitigation program. According to NWA Communication and Customer Services Manager Stephen Shaw, drain cleaning works have already begun in several parishes, while programs are currently being finalized to treat with other locations. Shaw explains that the drain cleaning contracts include both debushing works as well as carting away of material removed from the channels. NWA explains that the government's pre-hurricane mitigation program is the first of 3 routine drain cleaning activities which the agency undertakes during each calendar year. The agency will again carry out maintenance works in sections of the island's drain network during the next 6 months, as well as after the hurricane season ends. Opposition spokesman on Transport and Works, Michael Phillips, has raised concerns about what he said is the secrecy surrounding the major concession agreements signed between the government and 2 private investors in the shipping industry. In his 2019-2020 sectoral debate presentation in the House of Representatives yesterday, Phillips said the Port Authority of Jamaica has been unable to collect associated revenues from Kingston Freeport Terminal Limited, operators of Kingston Container Terminal, since that 30-year concession agreement was effected in April 2015.
The deal is done, and no doubt there will be benefits to the maritime sector and the economy in general. But the following questions remain. Did we get the best deal available? Why is the concession agreement protected by the Official Secrecy Act, never to be disclosed to the Jamaican people? Since the signing of the agreement, the concessionaire has demonstrated an unwillingness to share information, even with the Port Authority of Jamaica, which has a vested interest in obtaining such data, both for its own internal accounting purposes as well as to fulfill its role as regulator over the shipping industry.
Phillips said the inability to collect revenue is compromising the capacity of the PAJ to provide the required oversight on the nation's port security. Phillips noted that while it is expected that there will be benefits to the shipping sector, questions remain as to whether the country got the best deal.
The PAJ's agreement with KFTL includes a share in the profits made by the terminal, and it has to rely on being provided with timely and reliable information in order to process its revenues. In addition, as the agency managing the International Ship and Port Security Code modalities at ports around Jamaica, the PAJ imposed a security tariff on vessels and cargo passing over ports around Jamaica. The PAJ has been unable to collect associated revenues from KFTL since the concession agreement came into force, which is compromising the capacity of the PAJ to provide the required oversight on the nation's port security.
The PAJ signed the 10-year concession agreement with Ocean Towage in June 2018 to improve towage services at the Port of Kingston. Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, says the ministry will be implementing a national salt reduction program as part of continuous measures to combat non-communicable diseases, NCDs. Speaking at the opening of a two-day regional meeting on reduction of salt for prevention and control of NCDs held at the University of the West Indies Mona campus yesterday, Dr. Tufton said the program, which aims to reduce blood pressure and associated cardiovascular diseases, carries a $23 million budget. The minister pointed out that the project will run for 18 months in partnership with the Caribbean Institute for Health Research, which organized the meeting. $17.8 million is being spent on the government's adaptation program and financing mechanism for the pilot program for climate resilience Jamaica. The project was approved in December 2014, and the overall objective of the project is to increase Jamaica's resilience to climate change through enhancing adaptive capacity across priority sectors. Our team tagged along with one of the teams working on one part of the project in Clarendon, surveying the Rio Minho River. The river overflowed its banks back in 2017 after 72 hours of rainfall. In May 2017, Jamaica experienced one of the most intense rain events in its recent history. Roadways were blocked, bridges damaged, and farms and homes destroyed. Continuous rainfall caused flooding in 12 of Jamaica's 14 parishes. Clarendon was worst hit. The Rio Minho River, Jamaica's longest river at a length of 92.8 kilometers, is the main source of surface water in the parish of Clarendon. The Rio Minho watershed area.
So we're sitting along the riverbank in a place called Pennance, Clarendon, where a group from the University of the West Indies Geological Department is measuring the width and depth of the riverbed. Now, measuring the width and depth of the riverbed is important in the grand scheme of things because we can use this data along with others collected to design an early alert flooding system.
The main objective of the team is to conduct mapping of soils, debris flows, earth flows, landslides, as well as geological and geomorphological mapping.
We are measuring the channel at different sections along the river. This is the spot where Pennance is. Well, this locality is called Pennance. This was flooded in 2017. From the raw data collected, when plotted, we can show you what is the capacity of the channel. So if this gets filled up with water, we can tell you what volume of water can this channel hold. And if it is more than that X amount, it will spill. It is not repetitive of work which has been done before. It is not based on existing data, but it is actual field data collected on the spot before and after an event. An actual sediment size, so it is adding to the database of raw data which is then be processed.
This is the second set of surveys being done by the team. Having logged the movement of sediments, it has been found that the largest movement so far is upstream.
And the largest movement we've seen so far is in the Ballards River, which is a tributary of it's just upstream actually from here. Tributary of the Rio Minho. And I think there, upstream of that, there's a very susceptible slope which is susceptible to soil erosion. And I think material is getting into the channel and it's scouring a little bit around the material. So that's the main thing we've seen so far. Only little minor changes. I think we're hoping to see some larger changes if there's a flood event.
Normally, the next step for us is to do some sediment collection, and today what we'll be doing is a collection of the armor. The armor is a covering of rocks on the surface right across the channel.
The key is to analyze movement of rock type from one location following a landslide.
It helps the people in the community a lot about the flooding in the area and the changes in the weather type across this region. Some, maybe even the farmers, because you can see you have cane across there, cane across there. So maybe influence them in how they prepare their land for their crops.
The Meteorological Service of Jamaica has also joined in the effort to collect data to assist with mapping.
So we're at a weather station right here at Clarendon College, and I'm speaking with Mr. Adrian Shaw. He's from the Meteorological Service. Thanks so very much for agreeing to speak with us, Mr. Shaw.
That's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, so we're standing by the weather station right now. To me, it's just a pole with some equipment, but could you explain to our viewers exactly what it is and what it does?
All right, so this is a Davis automatic weather station. It is an improvement from our manual rain gauge. So the manual rain gauge would require someone to read it at 7 a.m. every morning. So getting out of bed early, right, or rain or shine, to read the rain gauge, one reading per day. What the automatic weather station does is that it gives take measurements of rainfall every 1 hour, so interval, so there are more data coming in, plus there are more parameters being measured. So not only rainfall, we know we have temperature, wind direction, wind speed, relative humidity, and so on.
That can be used with the erosion site. So what was the daily condition, what was the monthly data, and how much is the erosion level, so we can make a correlation, rainfall and erosion, rainfall runoff. And also, we don't have a lot of automated weather stations in Jamaica, which is very important for forecasting, because if you have daily data, you have a 24-hour accumulated rainfall at the end of the day. So you miss the peak when the storm is there. But if you have hourly data and you take the data after the event, you know when the storm passes and when you've gone down, so you can do it in warning and early warning or forecasting. So that's very important.
Efforts to combat the effects of climate change on Jamaica continues. Today is World Environment Day. It is the United Nations Day for encouraging worldwide awareness and action to protect our environment. Some people call it trash, waste, rubbish, or junk. Sometimes it stinks. Most times it doesn't. Garbage is anything that can be termed as no longer useful, as it has served its purpose. At the end of its use, it is generally discarded. The problem is, where and how do we do it? If garbage is not disposed of correctly, it can result in pollution. The two main causes of garbage pollution are the lack of proper garbage collection system in an area and a non-functional disposal mechanism. Garbage pollution can have several negative effects on the environment and public health, ranging from airborne, vector diseases, and water contamination. A garbage pileup is an ideal breeding ground for harmful bacteria, insects, and vermin. Chief Executive Officer of Jamaica Environmental Trust, Susan Stanley, says this would be effective based on our type of trash.
You know that 60% of Jamaica's waste is organic? So most of our garbage is garbage that is biodegradable, can be broken down, and a lot of it can be turned into compost.
Recycling is a useful way of protecting the environment from garbage pollution. It reduces dependence on fossil fuel and coal, both of which negatively impacts the environment. Recycling keeps our air, water, and land clean. Since it began in 1974, the event has grown to become a global platform for public outreach that is widely celebrated in over 100 countries. According to the UN, World Environment Day is the People's Day for doing something to take care of the earth. That something can be local, national, or global. It can be a solo action or involve a crowd. Everyone is free to choose. The theme for 2019 is air pollution. The National College for Education Leadership has signed a Memorandum of Understanding with the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, valued at close to $6 million for the development of digital content to support an online program in line with the agency's thrust to create more child-friendly schools. The program, which is scheduled to roll out in October. NCDL Director and Principal, Dr. Tanisha Ingleton, said that although there is documentation on creating child-friendly schools, there are no visuals to show how these concepts could be put into practice. The signing happened at the offices of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information in Kingston. Ms. Ingleton said that at least 10 schools will be funded under the project, with plans for others to follow suit. The practice of OBEAH has been illegal under Jamaican law for over 100 years, but Justice Minister Delroy Chuck has signaled that the quasi-religious ritual could soon be legal. Chuck disclosed that already he has instructed the Law Reform Department to craft another submission for him to take to Cabinet to have the 1898 OBEAH Act repealed.
The OBEAH law, I thought it was removed.
You take up my thing, the OBEAH thing.
I thought it was repealed, only to find out that it is still the law. But you know, Mr. Speaker, there's a cabinet submission from 1975 to repeal the OBEAH law. And it is still there. But I would like to bring it, after we pass this legislation, Mr. Speaker, I have asked the Law Reform Department for us to have another cabinet submission. I would like to bring for us to debate here in this House the repeal of the OBEAH law. It will be put in a broader concept in terms of scamming and other things. But there's no reason, Mr. Speaker, why the OBEAH Act should still remain on the statute book, and we hope to remove it in due course.
Church leaders have immediately signaled that there would be a pushback against a move they argued was leading the country away from God. The minimum age at which several types of motor vehicles can be imported into the island is being raised. The Trade Board has published a notice on its website announcing the new vehicle import ages. It said the date the new limits will come into effect will be soon announced. Under the new regime, the importation age for sedans and station wagons is to be moved from 5 to 6 years. The upper limits for light commercial vehicles are being moved from 6 years to 10 years. The age limits for trucks and all buses, except those with a seating capacity of 15 to 20 persons, are also being increased by between 3 and 5 years. The limit for motorcycles and all-terrain vehicles is being increased from 5 years to 10 years. In regional news, the Trump administration has imposed heavy restrictions on travel to Cuba by U.S. citizens, including a ban on cruises, in a bid to further pressure the communist island over its support for Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro. The State Department said the United States would no longer allow group people-to-people educational travel, one of the most popular exemptions to the overall ban on U.S. tourism to Cuba. The United States will also no longer permit visits to Cuba via passenger and recreational vessels, including cruise ships and yachts, as well as private and corporate aircraft. The U.S. travel to Cuba has been seeing a boom in recent years after former President Barack Obama loosened restrictions, allowing the reestablishment of regular commercial flights and cruise services. The United States became the second largest source of travelers to the island after Canada, with a majority arriving on cruise ships. Heads of anti-corruption agencies and government integrity commissions from across the Caribbean are meeting in the Cayman Islands to discuss the fight against corruption in public and private sector. Cayman 27's Joe Avery reports.
We are all in this room today as we are part of the global fight against corruption.
The Commonwealth Caribbean Association of Integrity Commissions and anti-corruption bodies is aiming to take a bite out of the big business of corruption.
Globally, we are facing a tidal wave of corruption. The IMF estimates that bribery costs roughly between $1.5 to $2 trillion annually.
With these social and economic consequences at stake, Commonwealth Secretariat Patricia Scotland QC says the Commonwealth has developed 22 anti-corruption benchmarks. They cover topics ranging from sanctions for corruption offenses to investigating and prosecuting authorities, political lobbying, and the disclosure of asset ownership.
I really hope that since Cayman has been at the forefront of a lot of these issues, that they will help by taking up the benchmarks, by helping us to implement them.
And while Cayman can hold its head high, Governor Roper says more can still be done to stem the tide.
I attach the greatest importance to the law on standards in public life being implemented as soon as possible. The Premier has assured me that he is committed to doing so.
That law was passed 5 years ago and has not been put into force. It's currently under review.
So many people think that corruption is a victimless crime, but regrettably it isn't.
Ms. Scotland says corruption siphons off money that could otherwise be used for projects of public benefit like roads, schools, and hospitals.
The Senate in the Bahamas has passed legislation to establish an intelligence agency. This agency will counter such threats as terrorism, human trafficking, and financial crime. Attorney General Carl Bethel said the bill was critical to the country's safety.
We are continually and daily assailed in terms of our financial sector by unforeseen challenges. They pop up out of the woodwork. We have no information. We have no contacts at the official level in terms of not the top. Of course, foreign affairs is at the top, but it isn't the top that makes these decisions. Paul Adley very famously said, when you are up there on the top floor telling the Secretary of State your issues, and he is shaking your hand and sympathetically nodding his head at you, yes, don't worry, don't worry. There's someone down there on the 6th floor writing your country's death warrant.
There could soon be a deal for the sale of one of 3 estates shut down by the Guyana government in its efforts to restore or restructure the sugar industry. But the delay in getting the evaluations, as well as concerns over political situation in the country, seems to be keeping investors away. Newsroom Guyana's Neil Marks has the details.
The investment consortium, which includes expertise from Guyana, is from India and Ghana. The Rose Hall estate, for which they hope to secure a deal, received the most interest from investors of all the estates shut down by the government. Wilfred Bagaloo, a partner with PricewaterhouseCoopers, which has been hired to secure investments for the sugar properties, gave an idea of potential operations at Rose Hall.
Their primary intention is to remain within the sugarcane industry. They intend to produce sugar, they intend to produce cosmetics or inputs for cosmetics, and they intend to produce liquid sugar.
The Rose Hall estate, along with factories at Skelton and Enmore, were closed at the end of 2017 as part of government's plans to consolidate the sugar industry. Bagaloo said the valuation of estates at Skelton and Enmore have been dragged out because the Ghana Sugar Corporation has failed to provide the information needed.
Information that we need from Guy Suko. Financial information for each of the estates. To date, I have not received that. I've received the audited accounts for Guy Suko. That's one thing. I need the information for each of the estates. The evaluators need the information on major equipment. Who are the suppliers? The last time the equipments were maintained. In relation to Skeldon, we need the agreement with the necessary manufacturers. Our colleague evaluators, which are out of San Francisco, need that kind of information so they can benchmark based on the age of the equipment, how long the equipment has been used, and they can make some calculations, some rough calculation as to the value, the economic value of the equipment. We have not received that information to date.
Further, the head of the Special Purpose Unit, Calvin Heath London, indicated that the political climate also affected interest from investors.
Investors were very uncertain in where Guyana is going politically. We're in the present state of no confidence vote and all of the legalities surrounding that. And several strong investors who were in play decided at this point in time to sit out until things have settled down. What we are doing, we are re-engaging them, because whatever the political process is, I'm confident that Guyana will stem the test of time.
sports, 20-year-old Maria Gray has been tapped to replace the injured Kayla McCoy in the Reggae Girls 23-member squad, now in France, for their FIFA Women's World Cup debut. McCoy was injured during Jamaica's final warm-up game against Scotland last Tuesday. On Monday, head coach Hugh Menzies confirmed that McCoy would have to be replaced. Gray, who is a junior at the University of Washington, made her senior debut in the Reggae Girls farewell game against Panama, which the Jamaicans won 3-1. And that's the news on PBCJ. Pleasant viewing.